welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing my June wrap-up, and I have a lot of books to talk about in this video because I read a lot of things in June. I ended up reading 16 things, which is a lot more than I normally read in a month. A lot of them were like novellas and short stories and graphic novels and just like quick, easy things. But still, even looking at the page count, I read a lot more this month than I normally do. It's actually been my best reading month of the year, which is great. But it also means I have a lot to talk about. So today I'm in my kitchen because I figured I just need to look at my computer a lot for this video. I have it right here. So it's just easier for me to film from here. And a lot of you seem to like this background anyway. So I figured, why not? But yeah, let's just start to go through all the things that I read. A lot of the things I'm going to talk about in this video I have already talked about in other videos. I did 2 reading vlogs in June. My Romanceathon vlog and my Queerlit Readathon vlog. So if you want like more in-depth thoughts about some of these books, or thoughts I had as I was reading the books, you could always check out those vlogs if you haven't already. Because I'm planning to be kind of quick about this video, just because I have so much to talk about. I can't like talk forever about all of these things. So yeah, let's just start. As usual, I think I'm going to go through the bookish bingo prompts first and what I read for those, and then I'll go through everything else after that. So the first prompt that I got for the bookish bingo was to read a book by a female author. And for this prompt, I read Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor. And this one is the second book in a duology. The first one was Strange the Dreamer. So for that reason, I'm not going to really talk about what this book is about, because that I feel like would be very spoilery. I think I mentioned about the first book when I talked about that it just ended in a very interesting way. Like a lot happened towards the end. There were some twists that I weren't expecting, and for that reason I was very excited to jump into this one, because I figured we would kind of jump right into where the first book ended. And we kind of did, but I was a little bit underwhelmed about the first 100 to 200 pages of this book, because yes, we were jumping right back into things, but things just slowed down a lot. I felt like nothing was really happening for the first 100 200 pages, and that was a little bit disappointed, because I was just kind of excited for things to happen, I guess. And this book also took a kind of a different direction from what I had expected or maybe hoped for. So overall, this one felt a little bit underwhelming maybe. I still really liked this. It was still good. I still like Laini Taylor's writing style, so this is not a bad book or anything. I was just kind of maybe a little bit disappointed compared to how I felt about the first book. So I'm giving this one a slightly lower rating, probably a 3.5 stars, I think, for this one. It's still a really good series though. If you like fantasy, or in particular YA fantasy, which this is, then you should definitely consider picking this one up. It's a good fantasy series, or duology, I should say. So there's that one. And then the second book that the bookish bingo gave me was Wildcard. And for this one I read, let's see, Heartstopper, Volume 1 and Volume 2. I think I only put Volume 1 on my bookish bingo TBR, but I read both of these. And I don't really feel like I need to talk much about these books. I've talked about them so many times. You all probably know by now that I absolutely love this series. It's one of my favorites. This is a reread. I talked about them in my vlogs. Yeah, I don't need to spend a lot of time on this. I gave both of them 5 stars again. Definitely some of my favorites. So yeah. The next prompt that the bookish bingo gave me was to read a book with a person or people on the cover. And for this book, I read Don't Let Go by T.N. Nova and R. Phoenix. This is a romance, and I kind of expected it to be kind of like hard-hitting, emotional, because it was supposed to be about like mental illness, and it definitely was. This one focused a lot on mental illness because both our main characters were struggling with that in like varying degrees. The story is basically about a artist, like a kind of a like famous artist, and he meets like more of a like regular guy, and they immediately feel this kind of connection, and they get to know each other, and they realize they're both like just dealing with a lot of like mental illness stuff. So they kind of connect because of that, I guess. So like I said, this focused a lot on mental illness, which I did appreciate. It's just that like I felt like everything else aside from that just weren't properly fleshed out. I might as well just say it right away, like I didn't really like this book. I didn't really like the writing style. The dialogue felt a little off, like there were weird chapter breaks, and I felt like the book as a whole kind of ended in a weird way as well. Like it felt like it ended kind of mid-scene. And like this, I think, is the first book in the series, so there are probably more, but still, that just felt really weird. So overall, like I didn't really get into this. Like I didn't really feel it. I didn't really care for it. I was hoping it would feel like very emotional, and I was just kind of feeling the romance and the couple. But like yeah, I just didn't. This one didn't work for me, basically. So I will give it 2 stars. And that's mainly just because I appreciated the mental health things. But yeah, didn't really work for me aside from that, unfortunately. Then the next prompt that the Bookish Bingo gave me was to read a non-fiction. And for this one, I read All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson. Let's see, I have it right here. So this one is a memoir, and it's written for a YA audience, which I didn't really know going in, so that was great. It focuses a lot on identity. The author is queer and black, and talks a lot about like both those identities. It's also a lot about family, and I really loved that part of the book. I actually don't feel like I've heard a lot of people talk about this. Like I heard about it here on BookTube, which was why I bought this book, but I feel like I heard a lot of people like talking about it like in halls and stuff, and I didn't really hear many people talk about it after I read it. So I don't really know how people feel about this one, but I thought it was really good. Like it was very engaging, very easy to read. Loved all the discussions about identity, loved all the family stuff. Like I would highly recommend this if this sounds in any way interesting to you, because yeah, I thought this was just really, really good. I'm not going to rate this because it is a memoir and I feel kind of weird rating memoirs, but yeah, highly recommend if this sounds interesting to you. Then the Bookish Bingo gave me the prompt to read a book for the Pop Sugar Reading Challenge. And for this one, I decided to read My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. And this one I chose to read for the prompt to read a dark academia book. And after having read it, I do think that this book could work for that prompt. So that's good. So this one, it's a difficult book to talk about. It's basically about a young girl and her relationship with her teacher. And this girl, she is about 15, I think, when the relationship starts. And the guy, he is a lot older, like in his 40s, I want to say. And this is a really uncomfortable book to read, but it's also incredibly well done, I thought. It was done in a way that made me kind of understand how something like this could happen, if it makes sense. I guess one of the things that made me a little bit hesitant going into this was the fact that I was a little worried that the book would kind of like tell me how I was supposed to feel about this, if that makes sense. like that it would be a lot more black and white, like the guy would be bad, the girl would be a victim, and that's it. And that's still how I felt at the end, but I just felt like the book was a lot more nuanced than that. I was actually surprised by how much I ended up liking this. Like, I didn't enjoy this book. I didn't like it, if that makes sense. I don't think I was supposed to enjoy it. It's not that kind of book. But like, I just thought it was so well done. And like, I wasn't sure when I put it on my TBR if I would like this one. Like, obviously I was interested in reading it because otherwise I wouldn't have picked it up. But like, I wouldn't have been super surprised if I ended up not liking this, but I actually did like this. The audiobook was also very good. I listened to that one. And there are some extras in this audiobook as well. Like at the end there is a conversation between the author, the audiobook narrator, and the producer of the audiobook, I want to say. And they kind of discuss the book and the audiobook. So that was super interesting. And also there is an interview with the author. So overall, I just thought this was really good. Like, it's kind of a longer audiobook, and I was really relieved when I was done with this one because I listened to it for like a large part of the month, and it's just the subject in this one it's not easy to listen to, and some of the scenes are just not fun. So I was like just kind of relieved when it was over. But yeah, I just thought this book was good. So yeah, I like I said, it's difficult to talk about this book, and I don't feel like I was really able to express very well my feelings about this. But to sum up, I liked it more than I expected. I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was really well done. So yeah, would recommend if this sounds like something you'd be interested in. Obviously there are trigger warnings for this, for the things that I mentioned. But yeah, really good book, and I liked it even if I might not have enjoyed it. Then I got the prompt TBR jar. So for this one, I basically used like a random number generator to pick a random title from my TBR. And the book that I ended up picking for this one was Cabin Fever by Ro Horvath. And I was a little unsure how I'd feel about this one because it was erotic romance, which I haven't read a ton of. So I felt like it could go either way, really, with this one. But I did end up really liking it, actually. It is a bodyguard romance where one of our main characters, he has received death threats. So he gets a bodyguard, and the two of them, they just go out to this remote cabin for a few weeks to hide out there while like investigators and stuff are trying to find out who is trying to kill this guy, basically. There are a lot of steamy scenes in this one and not a lot of plot. But like, I really liked the writing style and I liked the couple. And I think this one worked for me because the author spent enough time, this isn't a very long book, it's actually kind of short. I think it's about 160 pages. But the author spent enough time like building up the tension between the characters so that by the time things happened between them, it felt natural. Which is a little bit different from another book I'm going to talk about a little bit later, which also took place in a cabin and that I didn't end up liking. So yeah, overall I like this one. I would read more from the author and I would give it 4 stars. And then the final prompt for my Bookish Bingo TBR was to read a book by a POC author. And for this one, I read The Summer of Everything by Julian Winters. And this is about a guy who just finished high school. And he doesn't really know what to do with his life. He works in an indie bookstore and he has a massive crush on his best friend. And this book basically takes place over the course of the summer after his final year of high school. And this one just had so many things that I loved. It had a great friendship group. There was just like great atmosphere and setting. This just had all the summer vibes. It had a really cute romance, it had Arrow Ace Rap, and just a lot of representation in general, which was great. The ending was kind of bittersweet, but overall I liked it. So yeah, I just thought this was just really well written. Like I mentioned, the setting, the atmosphere was really great. Like, it's kind of a slow, quiet book. There's not that much happening really. But it almost felt a little bit lazy, which just worked really well with this being like a summer book and just like lazy summer days and stuff like that. So yeah, this one was, I thought, really, really good. I would probably give it like 4.5 stars, maybe more 4.5 stars actually, because I really liked this and I don't really have anything negative to say about it. There wasn't really anything I disliked about this one. So yeah, really good book. Had a really good time reading it. I would highly recommend. So then let's move on to the books that weren't on my Bookish Bingo TBR. The books I'm going to talk about first, I have mentioned in different reading vlogs. So if you watched those, you have heard me talk about these. So I'll probably repeat myself a little bit, but that's just how it's going to be. And the first book I'm going to talk about is No Strings Attached by Harper Bliss. This is a female romance. It's about a woman who's just divorced her husband, and she has moved to a new place together with her 2 teenage kids. And in their new neighborhood, there is this coffee shop where this woman ends up getting a job. And on one of her first days there, she meets this other woman, a customer, and they eventually start a relationship. And it starts out like kind of casual, and then it develops, I guess. I was never quite able to get into this, unfortunately. I just found the main character kind of annoying. She was really immature, I feel like, and there was just something about the whole tone of this book that I didn't really like. I didn't really feel the romance. So yeah, this just didn't work for me as much as I'd hoped. I mean, the writing style was fine, but like apart from that, yeah, I didn't like this. I would probably give it 2 stars. Like I said, the writing style was fine, but I ended up not really caring much for this at all, unfortunately. And then the next book that I read was The Last Drop by Layla Rain. This is also a romance. It's about a chef and a bartender, and they have a one-night stand. And that just happens to be on the night right before one of the characters is going to leave the city. So he does the day he leaves. And then there's a few months later, and one of our main characters, the chef, he is going to start a new restaurant. And he really wants this other guy to be his bar manager, but he doesn't really know who he is or where he is. So he just tries to find him, basically. He puts up like ads and stuff on the internet and just tries to track him down. I think things kind of go from there. Like, this was quick and sweet, like it's a 100-page novella. I thought it was really well done and I liked it. There is a lot of talk about like food and drinks and stuff like that I didn't really care that much for. And also, like, it's a little bit too short for me to really feel like any kind of like emotional attachment to these characters or anything like that. But like, I really like the writing style and I would definitely read more from this author. So yeah, I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. Then I read Spring Strings by Lily Morton. And this one is about a model and a farmer. And this model, he is at a photo shoot at this farm out in the countryside, when he suddenly starts to feel really sick in the middle of the shoot, and he ends up like collapsing. So he just really needs to go to bed and have some rest, so he does that out on this farm. And then he kind of just ends up staying there for a while he recovers. And like the rest of the people on the photo shoot, they go back to London, but he kind of stays there with this farmer. And this was just like a really cute romance. Like, you probably know by now that Lily Morton has become one of my favorite romance authors. Like, I have loved all of her books, and this one was no exception. There was just like a lot of like snarky banter between these two, and it was just a really fun romance to read. This is a novella, so it's shorter than the other books I read by her, so it wasn't like my absolute favorite by her, but I still really like this one, so I would give it 4.5 stars. Then I read Bad Boy by Emma Alcott, and I've already talked about this book in a couple of videos, but I have talked about how I didn't like it. But But basically I picked this one up because I read the prequel for this one earlier this year and I really liked it, so I have been excited to read this book. And it's basically about a guy who gets lost in a snowstorm on his way to a New Year's Eve party. And he ends up in the middle of the woods, and there's this cabin there. So he meets this guy who lives in the cabin, and he just asks if he can stay the night because there's a snowstorm and his car is stuck, and yeah, things kind of go from there. And just like the premise of this book and the setup, it just sounded like something that I would enjoy. Like I mentioned, I read kind of another cabin book this month, which was Cabin Fever, and I really liked that one. But this one just did not work for me at all. And there were a couple of things in particular that didn't work for me with this one. And the first one is that things happened between the main characters way too quickly. Like there was no build-up whatsoever. It was almost kind of a little uncomfortable because one of the main characters, the guy who gets lost in the snowstorm, he is portrayed to be this like super anxious guy. Like he worries about everything, he's scared about everything. And he's also a virgin, which he talks about a lot in it, which is kind of a thing for him. And then he arrives at this cabin and he goes inside. And he basically spends like 2 minutes with this other guy. They exchange like 2 sentences with each other, basically just 2 sentences. And they're suddenly all over each other. And that just made no sense whatsoever. Like that was just no build-up. And for this character that was portrayed, it just didn't make sense to me. And it kind of continued like that throughout the whole book. Like after a couple of days, they were just like, oh, I love you and stuff like that. And I didn't feel it. So that was one of the things. The other main thing that made me not like this book is just that it was way too long. This is over 400 pages long. And for like, I want to say half of the book, nothing happens. One of the main characters, the guy in the cabin, he is like an ex-criminal turned romance author, and a lot of the book is spent, or we see him like chatting with his like romance author friends. And I'm pretty sure this is a setup for the coming books in the series, because I think the coming books will be about the other authors. But like I didn't care. Like that, I just got nothing from that, and just like they were just staying in this cabin and nothing happened. And then towards the end of the book, when things actually did happen, I just did not care anymore, basically. So yeah, I did not like this book. And I think in my vlog, when I talked about this in my Romance-a-thon vlog, I think it was, like, I wasn't quite sure how I was feeling about this. Like, I wasn't loving it, but I was still, like, hoping that I might get into it, because I wasn't able to finish the book in that vlog. But, like, the more time has passed since I finished it, the less I like it, if that makes sense. Like, this just did not work for me at all. And I have given it 2 stars. The reason that it's not lower is just because that, you know, the writing style was fine. Like, based on the writing style alone, I would read more books from this author. But like the actual story was more like 1 star. I didn't like the story at all. And I actually have a couple of more books by this author, or at least 1 book by this author on my Kindle, that I might check out at some point, but not anytime soon, I think. Yeah, I kind of just don't want to think about this book anymore, so. And then we're approaching the end of the video. I have a few more short things that I read that I haven't talked about for like Bookish Bingo stuff or in any of my readathons. So the first one of those is Rick by Stella Shaw. And basically I picked this one up after having read Bad Boy and Don't Let Go. Like, I read those 2 right after one another, and they were both 2 stars, and I was just like, oh, I need something that I'm going to enjoy. So I picked up Rick because I read the first book in the series. The series is called Love at the Haven, and I read that book earlier this year and I liked it, so I was hopeful that this was another one that I was going to enjoy, and thankfully I did. So this series is about a group of escorts who works out of a hotel in London. And in the first book, the main character of that book is one of the escorts. But in this book, the main character is Rick, and he is actually the owner of the hotel, so he's not an escort. So in the first book, we learn that Rick inherited this hotel from his rather eccentric aunt who recently passed away. And then he comes to the hotel and he meets the people who works at the hotel. And he kind of just like, he becomes friends with them, and he kind of just decides to let them continue to work like they have done. Like, he's charging them a little bit for the room that they use, so like, because he needs an income, but like aside from that, he just lets them keep on doing what they're doing, basically. So this story is about Rick and Elliot. And Elliot, he comes to the Haven Hotel one night, and he's like super nervous because he has never had sex with another guy, and you know, tonight he's going to try it for the first time. And Rick happens to be the only one who's there at the time, like no one else is available. So he kind of just sits down and has a conversation with Elliot because he can tell he's super nervous. And they just get to know each other, and they really like each other. And Rick kind of pretends that he's an escort because Elliot thinks he's an escort, and he just kind of lets him think that. So that's kind of the setup of this story, and this was just like a super sweet romance. Like, this whole series so far has just been really sweet. And maybe it doesn't sound like it, but it actually is. Like, this has great characters. And there's like a found family aspect to this that I really like. It's also really well written. Like, the first book was pretty short and felt a little bit rushed because we both had the kind of the setup of the series while also having the romance for one of the characters. So it felt a little bit too rushed. But this one was a little longer, not like super long. I think it was about like 130-40 pages, so not long, but it was enough that it didn't feel rushed. And I really liked the romance in this one. So I ended up giving it 4 stars. I am excited to read the other books in the series because there are a few more that I haven't read yet. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. And then after I'd finished this book, I decided to read another short story in the same universe that I've had just lying around for a while. So that one is called The Flat Tire. And this is, like I said, a short story. It's like very short. It was like 20 pages or something. So it didn't take me very long to read at all. So it's set in the Love at the Haven universe. And in this book we meet Tom, and he's one of the escorts. But this particular short story actually takes place before he comes to the Haven Hotel. So we get to see kind of what his life was like before that. And yeah, it's kind of just like super short. It's not really a romance because we basically just see him kind of hook up with a guy without there not being much of a romance there. Like they like each other, but there's not really a romance. Which kind of makes me think it might be a setup for a later book in the series, but obviously I don't really know that. But yeah, it was just kind of very short. It was nice to be back in this universe, but it wasn't really anything special. So I'll probably give this one 3 stars. And yeah, it was just nice to read another story set in this universe. And then finally I have 2 more short stories / novellas that I read. The first one is Friends with Benefits by Saxon James. And this is a story about 2 people who have been friends with benefits basically for years. And it's the brother's best friend trope. So one of them is the brother, the other one is the best friend. And then they kind of just meet again at the brother's wedding because they don't live in the same area, so they don't see each other very often. So they meet again at the brother's wedding, and they've both kind of come to the conclusion that this whole friends with benefits thing doesn't really work for them anymore. So this was a nice little story. I enjoyed it as I was reading it, but it was also like a little bit forgettable kind of, because I read this pretty early in June, so it's been about a month now, and I don't really remember it all that well. So yeah, like it was sweet. The writing style was good, and I would read more from the author, but like it didn't make any kind of lasting impression on me. So I would probably give this one 3 stars. And then the final thing I'm going to talk about in this video is another short story, and that one is The Day Pass by Slade James. And this is a short story set in the Bear Camp universe, so it's the same universe as Grumpy Bear, which you may know is one of my favorite books of the year. So in this book we meet 2 of the guests at Bear Camp, and they're both like kind of older, probably in their 50s, I want to say. And this is just a very short book, and we basically just see these 2 people like meet each other, and you know, they're both feeling that there might be something there, and like nothing much really happens between them. Like we basically just see the start of something that could eventually turn into something. But yeah, it was really sweet. It was really nice to be back in this universe, and I was reminded how much I like Slade James's writing style. So yeah, it was a quick, easy one. I would probably give it 3.5 stars. And it just made me excited to hopefully soon maybe read another book in the Bear Camp universe. There's not another one out yet, but I'm hoping there will be. But yeah, it was a nice, sweet, quick one. So yeah. So that was all the books and short stories and novellas and stuff that I read in June. There was a lot, but I just had such a good reading month in June. I just really enjoyed reading this month, and I was just in a reading mood, so hopefully that will continue into July as well. So yeah, that's going to be it for this video, I think. Let me know if you've read any of these books, and if you have, what you thought about them. But yeah, that's going to be it for today. If you like this video, you could always hit like down below, or you could subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos from me. But yeah, that's going to be it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon with another video. Bye!